This week, I have Sarah Pirozek, who's going to talk about her distribution process for her film, #Like. Before we get to that, here's a little segment about her. And also, I want to mention that there's another video that this one at the end will have a link to, where Sarah talks about the actors in her film and gives some tips for actors starting out in indie films. So if you're an actor or you just want to hear more about the project, definitely check that out. Sarah Pirozek is a filmmaker with extensive writing and producing credits. She's gone on an amazing and exhausting distribution journey with her recently released feature film, #Like. She outlined this in a series of articles for Filmmaker magazine, and she's going to discuss this in-depth, crazy ride, where it has taken her, and where her film is now. She'll also offer some general do's and don'ts based on what she's discovered along the way, and she'll share her experiences dealing with navigating the film festival circuit with a micro-budget movie. Welcome. Thank you for coming on to the show. We've just seen a little intro about you and your life. I wanted to really focus, though, on your new movie, #Like, which I watched and I liked. So, so I wanted to really hear about your journey more than, about the film. Obviously, people should just go watch the film. And I'll be putting in links in the description, letting people know where to find it. So, but when you started out, I read some of your articles, and I know that you talked about it being very hard to get into a big film festival with a lower budget movie, and that's kind of where the journey began. So take it away.
The reason it ended up being a challenge to get into festivals, and the reason that the film was a challenge, you've seen it. It was made, I've directed a lot of commercials, and it was made for probably a tenth of what a 30-second commercial was made for, The normal run, as most people know who are watching this, when you're making a film, if you're a big-time director-producer, you've already got your distribution probably hooked up. You've got your either studio or production company having signed on a legal team who has connections to PR, companies, or they have an in-house PR or whatever. So for me, everything I kind of did it, not backwards. I did it what you'd think was forwards, like raise some money, write the movie, raise some money, make the movie, sell the movie, show the movie. You need to know kind of where you're going to be showing it and what the genre is, what the audience is beforehand, and then have contacts with people. A lot of people are in contact with Sundance or South by or whatever, their in-house PR people 2 years before, when the film is at script stage, going, we have this film coming up, we'd love to have you consider it when it's ready, have it in the zeitgeist of the festival. So I didn't know any of this. And I didn't, I've learned a lot about how to run a PR campaign, how to get into festivals, etc. But the festivals I got into were all really, I was very grateful to be accepted in them. And they're all fantastic, like tier 2. Having gotten into those festivals, I could promote some kind of PR with them, so then I ended up getting a lot of pull quotes. I could use those for my trailer.
And then what happened? Just distributors just showed up?
Shari. It was a very weird time to be distributing a film, because not only was it the COVID time, it was the streaming wars had begun. So 5 years ago, I spoke with Minette Louis, who's a big producer, indie producer, and she was saying, 5 years ago, you could have just sold your film to Netflix, because Netflix was buying up all the little indie films. So you make a film, you sell it, you maybe make your money back, maybe more, maybe a little less, but you will be fine. Then Netflix said, no, we're going to start doing only original content. They stopped buying all the indie films. And then Amazon started putting their prices down. So even if you self-published, you were getting like 0.6 cents on every hour viewed or something. And I think it was 6 cents. And then it went down to point something cent. Anyway, so it really became a complicated deal of, people aren't really going out to the cinema as much. The streamers who are killing cinema aren't buying indie films anymore. And then COVID hit, so no one was going to the cinema. And it was really hard to figure out how to move forward. The way it usually works is if you're a big movie, you have either a pre-sale in place or you hire a sales agent. And the sales agents will take your film or your trailer to a ton of different distributors. I did have a bunch of sales agents reach out to me because they do pop up once you get accepted into film festivals. But then I realized a lot of them would just be approaching people that I could approach myself. And then I was like, why would I pay someone? And it's like $5,000 just to shop it around to maybe 5 different places or 6 different places. I realized when I was shopping it around, it's really actually in the days of the internet, you can just find someone's number and call them up or email them, and half of the people get back to you. I reached out to Neon, Gunpowder and Sky, and I had also met this guy who is VP at Giant, which is a curated aggregator. And for people who don't know what an aggregator is, an aggregator gets films, they aggregate films, and then they disperse them onto platforms and they'll pitch them. But Giant's a little different because it's a curated aggregator. They don't allow just anyone to go on there. Like Bitmax, you can just pay money, get your film calibrated correctly for broadcast, and they will just put it online on certain places that you can have public access to. But you can't do it yourself. So you do need an aggregator. What's interesting about Giant is that they are somewhat of a gatekeeper. They only have films of a certain quality, and they will do all the same thing, and you'll have to pay upfront fees, but then they only take a percentage of your film. So you get the lion's share of the profits because the other thing to remember is the platforms take a percentage of all sales too. I did get an offer from 1091, and I'd heard that they were basically just taking tons and tons of films but not supporting them. When I say support, it's not like an emotional support. It's like putting dollars into advertising.
Yeah, PR,
So
sure.
Yeah, totally. And I also learned how expensive that was because I hired my own advertising firm to do TikTok ads and Instagram ads. And that really, really helped out. But I had no idea. I'd have to start pouring, I was like 20 grand out of pocket doing my advertising and PR and everything else and prep to get the film out there before I even knew I was going to make money back. Luckily, it all came back. And, that's credit to the filmmakers involved as well as the actors. As a filmmaker, I realized how little money filmmakers make when they give it to a distributor.
Right.
Like the smaller distributors, they also don't have the money, and it's a gamble on their end if they take a movie on. But if they just take it, put it on all the platforms, they might even use Giant themselves. I don't know. So Giant takes 20%. You get 80. So, if you give it to a distributor, these days they're not even giving MGs, which is minimum guarantees. So in the olden days, like 2-3 years ago, someone would say, here's 10 grand or 30 grand or 100 grand for your movie. And that will go against anything that comes back, depending, I'm talking about studio movies, whatever, blah, blah, everyone. If they don't have a deal up front, well, studio movies would, but, larger indies. But now they're not even giving minimum guarantees. They're talking about splits at the back end. So what was great about going through Giant is that they pitch it. It's nothing sexy. There's not someone in a room being charming, talking about how great your film is. It's literally like an Excel spreadsheet. They send to all the different platforms with some like keywords, maybe the trailer, cast list. And then you pray that they take it. It was a challenge because I really wanted to get some kind of international distribution, particularly as I'm from England. You hear I talk funny. I really wanted, to take it home. So I had friends there who are like, when are we going to see your movie? And they can't just see it, unless you put it up for free somewhere like YouTube, or you do a pay platform on Vimeo, which you could do, but it's a ton of managing. And then it's just a less nimble situation and you're not on the normal platform. So yes, your friends and family could see it, but it's not going to get a broader appeal. So then I did find another similar company in England who does UK distribution. And they're called Central City, which are great, run by a woman, Sophie Wong, who's amazing. And she used to work with, I'm trying to remember, big distribution. Icon, that took It Follows to the UK.
Oh, yeah.
And I, really liked her vibe. And she said, well, let's see what we can do. And that she got it out into the English market. But what's so funny, it's the English language market. So it's the Channel Islands, Gibraltar, Malta, England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, all oil rigs in the North Sea. So I've like captive audience by breaking the waves. When it got released, this was so great because there's an interactive heat map that you could go to for Apple TV, for example, and you can literally see how many people are watching your film every week in what states. It literally shows you this, map of America with the states, and you can click in and go, oh, 13 people in Wyoming watched my movie. But then you see, oh, yeah, 500 people in New York watched my movie.
That's
So
great.
it's really exciting as a filmmaker because you do, as a producer and as a director, you really get that feedback and sense of where your film is hitting and, who is appreciating the film. But then I think about this girl in Wyoming watching my movie, which is so great because, back in the day, you wouldn't have been able to have theatrical. And if a big streamer doesn't pick it up, you don't have that option also. So that's just for Apple, but it was so, so fun. And then I could also gauge how much money I put into the PR and publicity. I hired a firm called Submersive that did my advertising, not the PR, but the advertising. And they bought time on TikTok and Instagram, etc. for me. I didn't end up advertising on Facebook, which I kind of regret because they said, oh, it's not worth it. You don't get the feedback. So I don't know, but I would have liked to have done it just as a test to see how it performed because you can get your stats, your statistics. But, in TikTok, it was so fun because it literally said these many click-throughs from what gender, what age group, what geography. So you could actually see how the film was doing. And yeah, it was really, really fun to see, teenage boys one week were my main group. And I'm like, wow, they're watching a feminist noir thriller.
That's awesome, though. That's great.
Yeah, but then on your heat map and your interactive thing, it also shows how much money you've made. So it shows how much is coming in, so you don't have to figure it out. So, for example, Apple is a 30-70 split to the filmmaker. Amazon is a 50-50. So, if you had the next George Clooney movie and you owned it, you could say, I'm only doing it on Apple because they give me a better split as a filmmaker. But someone like me, I just want to
You got to be everywhere.
spread it. Yeah,
I think that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and no, it is great because then okay, do I put another $2,000 towards advertising this week? Well, if you made 8 last week, you kind of can justify it because it keeps, the motor
keeps feeding itself. It's like if you go gambling, you're supposed to bring like whatever you can afford to lose, and then if you make that back, you can just keep going to if you double it, right? You can just keep going, and if you lose the double, well, you're not out anything. You've broken even, right? It's just financing.
It really felt like that. It really felt like I was like a high roller.